All right. Well, shalom to everybody. I hope you guys are all blessed and experiencing the fullness of all that we already are. And what an amazing time frame we live in. What amazing things are going on. The awakening, uh, uh, it just is absolutely overwhelming. The 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 provision that's coming out for us to learn how to truly be spirit beings. When you begin to understand and realize that unfortunately maybe we've been deceived, some would say immediately on 1,000 different levels, and I think all of those things are true. That's not really the thing I'm interested. I want us to acknowledge it. I want us to acknowledge truth when it exists. Sometimes necessarily, maybe even when it's not positive, because acknowledgement of truth is still acknowledgement of truth. But I also have no interest for us to focus on those things, but to begin to open up and to allow ourselves to see. There have been so many revelations that have come out of this understanding and concept that we've been experiencing, as far as getting away from uh, the myths and the narratives that have been written, that we've been taught, and you could even go as far as to say have been crammed down our throats societally, and uh, obviously our parents didn't know any better, or hopefully they would have done better. Uh, so I don't blame it on them. They're in the same situation. Many have left this earth and gone into the other side, and really with zero knowledge. And so I believe that we as divine beings, and we need to begin to recognize that. You say, well, how does all of that work then? Under the guise of Christianity or the guise of Torah, you were only acceptable if you didn't make all of these mistakes. And yet, all of us, if we're honest, would be willing to admit that we made all of those mistakes. And so, quite honestly, it puts you on a rat race. And I think the Apostle Paul was finding this out, that no matter how hard he tried, it eluded him. And maybe you've experienced that. I certainly know that I have. I think that people who are dedicated will learn how to have success in some areas. Can we ever be successful in the whole? Some say you can. If so, I've never found that. I can be good about 25 things and not so good about 2, and the 2 are what's important, not the 25. And so as we begin to move into a different level and a different place, all of a sudden we find out, well, these things we have no knowledge of who wrote them. We have no knowledge of whatever. We find out that we have 2 gods that exist in the Bible, and there's probably a lot of Christians and Torah keepers both that will argue that that's not true. But I've shown you guys over the last several months that it is true. No, I don't care. They can accept and keep their truth. Remember this is a piece that we have to grab a hold of. There are many realities. We often haven't understood that, and each of us has a reality based on where we are in our perspective of the world, of the things, of us, of the whole cosmos. And for you, maybe your reality is valid, at least for now. And so we all were taught that everything is fixed, and there are some things, brother, that never change. And the truth of the matter is there's nothing in this whole cosmos, this whole universe, this whole existence, there's nothing that isn't always changing. And so that right there tells us that maybe our thought processes. So nothing in the cosmos is ever not changing, but we down here on this fixed little earth, we never change, or the truths that we experience. Funny, the more that the truth comes out, and the more that I study archaeology, man, they're starting to find stuff, people, of humans that lived 55,000 years ago. That's a little further back than 7 days. No matter whether you want to call it metaphorically, literally is irrelevant, makes no difference. 55,000 years, and there's humans that live here and were writing, even if it was pictographs on the walls with red ochre and stuff. That's still 55,000 years ago that there were humans living. That has to do something to disrupt the story. The narrative is not correct. And so when you begin to see that, and I know that it's true because I've talked to some of you, and some of you may struggle for quite a while. Yeshua's teaching in the Gospel of Thomas, which is where we're going to pick up back to where we were in a minute, and I know that people, have probably pre-read, and as what it used to be when I was a pastor in a Christian church, people would read it, and then I would read it and share what the Spirit was leading me to, and they would go, wow, I read that thing 5 times, but I never saw that. And so there's a purpose for us reading these things, and there are purposes for the things that we maybe sometimes don't get, because that helps us. Until we can see that we're not tracking true or we're not understanding, until we bear ourselves and become honest with that, then it's hard to take on a new perspective. And so I hope that you guys are understanding that and looking and seeing all around the world there's enlightenment going on. There are people who are waking up and going, hey, there's something that doesn't line up about this world. And those people are truly blessed. I've shared quite a few times with you, and if you take this, for me, the awakening began. So I think it's like a spell, if you want to know the truth. The minute that I began to cast this spell over people that I knew and people close to me, and certainly myself, the minute that I began to cast this spell, we begin to start having flickers of light turn on in places that we never saw it before. Maybe it's happenstance, but then again, maybe it's a synchronicity. One predicated the other one. And so it's not difficult to take this writing, an amazing thing about being illuminated and your wholeness and the Father giving gifts and all of the wonderful things tied up in this. And it's not really difficult. There would be some people go, yeah, but it says Yod He Vav He at the beginning of those 3 verses. And that's true. And it would take a scribe to redact that about 2.2 seconds. You can put any name there you want. Don't fool yourself, and don't let yourself continue to be deceived that because it's written in the Bible that anyone who adds to or takes away is cursed. Folks, there's a lot of cursed people that have lived in history. They've redacted the Bible so many times it's not even funny. And so we have to then recognize what reality is. Is it reality? Is it true that people, scribes, have made errors? Absolutely. Is it also that they wrote intentional things? Well, according to Jeremiah, as I've shown you guys in the past, according to Jeremiah, he was quite aggravated and had the consciousness that the scribes had been rewriting the Torah, and the Torah he had lived with up until that point. Being a son of the high priest, he had access to the scholarship. And yet he reads something that predates that, kind of like us reading the Epic of Gilgamesh, or us reading about Enki and Enlil, and all of a sudden you begin to go, this narrative ain't this narrative. We need some help here. And so the Creator is always his want to bring to us light. And really all of that is said for this purpose, because the journey that we're on now is to begin to break out of the carnal that religion forces you into. I know some of you may not quite understand this maybe as much as other people do, or maybe some more, but we have been forced into carnality. In other words, we have been programmed from the time we were little children to lose the spiritual beingness that we are. And so you guys have all lived your whole life thinking that if you just did everything right, then you would be good enough to go to heaven. And that's what they wanted you to think, because they knew you would never be successful at it. And so the breath that is blowing and the wind that is blowing is a cosmic change that's happening all over the world. And people are starting to wake up and recognize that there is more in us than we have any clue of. There is more. I would love to tell you today that you are more than you have any clue of. There is the divine that exists, that created. That divine lives inside of you. That divine is you. And so, because I'm working mostly, probably, it seems like people who are either still in Christianity or people who are just coming out of Christianity, I really think that there's a piece of it that has to do with that narrative and I desire to show you that maybe just like the other things we found in the Torah, where there is truth in the literature, it's really truth inside the fiction, but there's truth in the fiction of Star Wars. Okay, so that's really not a surprising thing that here and there we get glimpses of truth, and it comes from different places. And so I would like for you to begin to grow and learn and understand and breathe. One of the things that go along with this different life, and for those of you, I hope that you saw through the prayer that the teaching on Saturday, there really may be, yet again, this may be one of the deceptions. I know I made the statement at how we used to laugh at all of these people who talked about, all these swamis that walked around and they did all these weird things, and they sat with their legs crossed, and they were oming and yeomen and roman, and now I find out all of those things actually affect the human body. And so as we go, and then once I get into sharing more about chakras with you, which are absolutely a base piece that we need to get a hold of, that there are supernatural things that go on that these people are doing. Well, I've shown you that Master Isa, Yeshua, who some would call Jesus in Christianity, that he left his homeland, and this picture of him that occurs is very much, to me, is the metaphoric picture of the Exodus, with a little twist at the end of it. And that is that he had to leave where he was, because where he was corrupt. And he had to go and find what truth was, and he did. And when he went and found what truth was, the pearl of great price, he then bought it and brought it home to share with those that he loved. And friend, whether you recognize it or understand what I'm saying or not, we have it within our reach. We have it within our ability to also do the same. The question is will we, not can we? Because I promise you, we can. We can learn to begin to see through this suit of clothes that we call the human body, and that inside of us exists an eternal light that is the essence of creation itself. It's only up to you to choose to allow that. And belief has everything to do with everything. And as we go this next week on the whole prayer thing, because that's the essence of what prayer is not, as I showed you, is not. It's also not the force that is always necessary for supernatural events to happen. In fact, as I said, you almost never find Yeshua ever praying for anybody. He simply healed them. Why? How could he call on something, some force inside of himself? How could he simply will it and it came to pass? If your ears are twerking right now, it's a wonderful thing, my friend, because you are a candidate to move into the supernatural realm. This has also been hidden from us. I used to struggle in Christianity because I saw some really cool things. I got blessed to be a part of praying for people and watching something happen. But the mass majority of people that I knew and ministered to had never personally experienced. And I used to ask myself this all the time. Well, you know, Master Isa said, ask us here, these signs will follow those that believe. What does it mean if no signs are following? I had signs following me. It was proof that I believe. Hello. We like to get so doctrinally deep that we understand A, B, C, and D, and we forget about X, Y, and Z. And it brings us back to the whole concept of the golden rule, if you would. What is the golden rule? I'm to love my neighbor like I love myself. What is the rule that predicates the golden rule? The first thing is you got to recognize you got to love yourself. And my friend, that is the phase that everybody wants to step around. Because when you begin to learn to love yourself, you have to first look at yourself for who you really are. And until you're willing to be honest with that, you will never grow. You will stay spiritually stagnant. And many, many, many people I've known throughout my life, that's exactly where they live. And so I don't have a desire for me to stay there, and because I don't have a desire for me to stay there, if you desire not to stay there, I don't have a desire for you to stay there. There's no reason for you to. There's no reason for us not to be manifesting these spiritual principles that have been sold to us in a package that it somehow happened in the Bible, and that's all there is to it. If Paul could lay on someone who never knew Yeshua, could lay on somebody that was dead, and they came to life, when are we going to begin to ask ourselves, why are these things not functioning in me? I think it's a very valid question to ask. So, as we go along, we find out then that there was timing in Yeshua's life when he needed to get away. He needed quiet. He needed stillness. He needed lack of chaos. Sometimes we need nature. I heard a really wise quote, and I admit that I haven't done this every single day, but I do admit also that I am beginning the process of changing my mind. Something as simple as taking your shoes off and walking out in your front yard or your backyard for 5 minutes a day, they say drains all of that negative energy through your feet into the earth. You go, oh, that's silly. I ain't going outside. My feet are tender and they hurt. Well, my feet are neuropic and they hurt too. But I'm going to tell you, there's something freeing when you begin to honor this mother. I'm going to show you today, if we get that far. If not, I will next week, that Yeshua very much taught and believed that this earth is our mother. Just as much as the creative force, the power that lives inside of us. And if we could, and he speaks to this, if we could remove our physical bodies, so let's have a near-death experience together and take these clothes off and lay them down and look at ourselves, what would you see? If you haven't pondered that question, I want to be the Johnny Appleseed today, and I want to sow that seed to you, because until you begin to ask yourself that question and then desire to find the answer, you'll never know. And I want to know, what am I really? If I am, and I am, if Yeshua was, how do I know he was? Because he said to the high priest before they killed him, I am. And they were irate because he knew he was the power that they wanted people to believe they controlled. And so once again, no matter how you slice it or dice it, friends, we've had lots of generations and lots of people who have worked very hard to hide who we are. What if we really all could learn to love each other? What if humanity just made a conscious decision to begin to love each other? What if we really made a conscious decision? And I know there's not anybody that I know that I believe doesn't think that they love their children, so I'm not saying that. But the question isn't, is that what you think? The question is what does the Spirit think? Are we truly showing the love of the Spirit, the love of the truth? Are we really showing that and teaching that to our children? And I contend that we're not. Now that's a societal issue, but any societal change that comes with the first spoken word. Whether you know it or not, the heavenlies are reverberating with the very words that I'm speaking right now. I got an amazing word that I did not need to worry about tearing down the foundations, that I needed to share the ministry and the truth that's inside of me with people, that it wasn't important what was, it's important what is. And so I hope that you guys will be and have that same heart. I hope you're hungry to learn and to begin to see and to begin to find out how do we begin to feel these things up in the Bible that we read about peace like a river flowing. How do we find that in this chaotic life we live in? How do you find out abundance? How do you have nothing and yet possess everything? All questions that the Bible posed, friend. And so if we could today, I would like if you would, we're just going to take a few minutes and we're going to kind of set the stage. If you guys will just take a few minutes and we're going to do just a couple of deep breaths, slowly breathe in, slowly breathe out. It's very, very, very important that we begin to learn that peace is actually part of our functioning, that when we settle our minds, meditation is the same way. If you've just begun meditating and you are attempting, you're going to have things come. It's okay if you'll continue. You will begin to learn how to take control of your mind again. The reason that we have struggles on one level when we meditate is because we have lost control of our minds. I've been telling you, even under the Torah guys, that this is a mind game, friend. So I am so thankful that the Creator Father gives me revelation long before I even understand it, because for me, I'm like a kid in a candy store when I see something and come to fruition or come in front of me that I spoke 6 months ago. And so if you will let's just take a second. You'd be amazed what's going on inside of your body when you do that. Hold it and let it out. Just release everything. When you do those long releases, just release it. Man, let whatever's inside of you that's holding on and nagging at you, just let it go. It's like I was blessed with a Reiki session today, and I was really blessed in about 100 different directions, but while I was going through this and we were working and looking at my chakra, all of a sudden I began to cough real bad. I had a real bad coughing spell. And I haven't had those in several years since I had neck surgery. And the person with me explained that when they were testing my chakra, that my blockage was in my throat area. Because once I went through my coughing spell and got myself, it was like, whew, everything was peace. So even in those things are physical things that manifest through the human body, and none of us, for the most part, I can safely say, the mass majority of us have no concept of anything I'm talking about. How sad that we live such twisted up lives full of angst and shame and guilt. Are any of you still guilty? Because if you are, you need to let that go. and you can sit down and breathe. I'd like to, at the end, if I can remember before I get out of here or get sidetracked, I would like to give you a couple of affirmations that I think will help you guys. It will help you begin, because the battle that's raging inside of us is going on. It is light against darkness. And when you begin to see that it's light against darkness, then you must begin to learn how to fight like the light fights and quit learning how to fight like the darkness fights. And that's what we have been taught, is to fight the light. And I say, let's quit fighting the light and let's begin to live in the light. And that's when things get good. I'll show you, Yeshua agrees with me. So we're going to pick up in verse 21 is where I left off. Mary comes to Yeshua and says to him, "What are your disciples like?" Now, I don't know how many of you that have pre-read this. This is a totally esoteric teaching. Nothing on many levels is what it appears to be. And so he says, they are like little children living in a field that is not theirs. So us, his disciples, us, are like little children. We're living out in the middle of a field, but we don't own it. And when the owners of the field come, who are the, and I want you to see this, you got to see this. People read things and get nothing out of it. I don't want to read something and get nothing out of it. I want to read it to get something out of it. But look at what he says. This should shock you to your very core. He said, they are like little children living in a field that is not theirs. When the owners, what does an S in English on the end of a word make that word? Can we be singular and plural at the same time? When the owners of the field come, they will say. Well, we know that this is a metaphor of the earth, and we are the metaphor of the children living in somebody else's place. And when these owners, well, my immediate question when I saw that was, well, first off, let's have a discussion about who owns this thing. I was told El owns it. And then I was told Yahweh owned it. And then I found out that El and Yahweh certainly were not the same person. So who owns it? If those gods of the Bible don't own it, then who does own this? And I will tell you, just as we read in Bereshit, that in the beginning they created us. If you begin to track true with the true concept of this, there isn't anything written that has to do with the Bible that ever says that there's one God. And I've shown you guys that. I didn't need to twist the scriptures. We just needed to read them in right context. And so there are owners of this field. There are other owners of this earth, friends. It's not a singular thing. There are many who have been here. And they will say, give us back our, once again a plural word, our field. This isn't yours. This isn't humans. Humans don't own the earth. And they take off their clothes. Give us back our field. They take off their clothes in front of them in order to give it back to them. Do you know what that means? What do those words mean? He goes, all of a sudden now, he jumps from these owners of the field, but they have to take their clothes off to give it back to them? What's all of that saying? He's telling you, friends, that we're just visiting here for a short period. We don't die when we die. In fact, we're never going to die. That's good news to me. I'm okay if my body dies as long as me, the essence Rob, exists, then I'm ready to go live another life somewhere. Maybe 1,000 more. But he says they take off their clothes in front of them in order to give it back to them. So how are we going to give this earth back to the spirit forces that own it? We're going to take these clothes off. Friends, that's modern day New Age psychology right there in the Bible, and it's always been there. So what Yeshua just explained to you in one statement is exactly what I'm telling you that we are. This body is not who we are. This body is what we're inhabiting while we live here. Is this house that I live in, is this house me? Or is this simply a place that I reside in? And so is your temple. Simply a place, a physical place that you reside in. You, the light of the world. And we have been beat up and pushed down and despiritualized to the point that the mass majority of humans on this earth do not know the greatness that they are. And so we've spent all of our time trying to be right when we were already right. What if I told you you were freaking great and you didn't even never need to pray to anybody about anything? Are you hearing me? We've been deceived, and we're not going to stay deceived. I'm telling you right now. So they take off their clothes in front of them in order to give it, the earth, back to them. So we're going to all disrobe. Now, could tell you other things that I believe fit this precisely, and they were written thousands of years apart. But that is, for us, the essence of the end of the age, the time in which humanity is existing in the form that it presently exists. I didn't say it's the end of human. I said it's the end of humanity as it exists. But we must also do the same. So then we can ask ourselves, so can we all have near-death experiences, and we'll all just leave our bodies laying around and we'll all just sing hallelujah all day long? Holy, holy, holy is still a wonderful thing to say. It's who you point that at. And so they take off their clothes in front of them in order to give it back to them. And that's coming. I believe that is a place, a phase where humanity will process to. And they return to their field to them, which is the whole ascension process. Is anybody seeing that? It's so beautiful. It's right here in front of you, friends. That's why the Catholic Church did not want you to see these texts. And even if you go read the Gospel of Thomas, you seldom find this version, the scholarship version. You still get a rewritten version. Even in that, I've read several of them. I know they don't say that. So there's a constant downturn of the truth from us, a constant hiding. There has to be a reason why people need to hide the truth from us. What if we could figure out inside of us, maybe we'll do it on the internet. What if we could figure out how to just do like this and go, one Saturday, everybody just all at once, we spiritually unzip ourselves and our bodies fall to the floor, and there's these beautiful glowing auras of light, and that aura of light is you. Would it change the way you perceived yourself? I believe you would begin to be a believer. But I'm here to tell you today, you can be a believer without seeing it. Because it happens every day. It is you. You have an aura. Every one of us humans have an aura that extends about 18 inches outside of us, a power field that comes around. That's why when you walk up to somebody and you feel a clash, you and your two auras interconnected with each other, and there's something about that person's aura that's not right. Or for them, there's something about your aura that's not right. And it is possible for it to be both at the same time. Because if your aura is right and their aura is wrong, there's no way those are ever going to go together. How can two go together except they agree? How can two go together except they believe the same things? Of course, Dave's saying our vibrations, and it's absolutely 100% quells our vibrations. And so he says to them, they took their clothes off in front of them in order to give it back to them. So he just told us that the only way for us to give this earth back to those created beings who are mentioned in the Hebrew Bible as flying in kavods. If you've seen Paul Wallace and Mauro Biglino's YouTube on the word kavod and how Christianity has corrupted it, it will totally blow your mind, because what's being said right here goes exactly with the true definition of the word kavod, which is the word that was interpreted into our Bibles as the glory of God. Why don't we say the flying ship of God? Because that's exactly what it's talking about. This is giving you a reference that there is those outside of this earth that possess this. And for us to give it back to those people, we must leave it spiritually. Pretty cool. And for this reason I say, now look at this. If the owners of the house knew that a thief is coming, they will be on guard before the thief arrives, and will not let the thief break into their house, their domain, and steal their possessions. Well, that opens up a whole nother set of questions. What does he mean then? Because now he's talking about the owners of it. So you get a little concept difference there, and I won't go into it right now because there's so many different possibilities, and I haven't found the text that corroborate it. But I assure you, when I do, I certainly will be more than happy to share that, because it actually, there's some really heavy questions that begs for us to ask ourselves. But he says, as for you then, be on guard against the world. Be on guard against the world. What does that mean? Why is that important? How does that affect me? What does he want from us? But as for you, as for you, as for you, as for you, here's what you must do, those of the light. You must be on guard against the world. Prepare yourself with great strength so the robbers cannot find a way to get to you. So you must learn a way to protect yourself so that the robbers cannot come and steal what you are. Remember, it's not about the body. So it is our job to protect ourselves against those that would come and try to rob who we are from us. We've been robbed is a perfect statement, Dave. There's no question we've been robbed. Prepare yourselves with great strength. It's funny, a couple of the things that have gone on with me, those were pieces of the conversation, and I've had the Creator tell me that over the last 30 years quite often. And it's such a simple message, but it seems like every time that gets said to me was at a time when I was feeling quite weak. Maybe you feel weak every now and then as well. For this reason I say, if the owners of a house knew that a thief is coming, they will be on guard before the thief arrives, and will not let the thief break up their house, their domain, and steal their possessions. As for you, then, be on guard against the world. Prepare yourselves with great strength so the robbers can't find a way to get to you. Well, ask yourself this question. What is the context here, and how could these robbers get to me? And I'm going to give you the simple answer. I've already given it early, but I'm going to give it again. And as we go through this process and the rest of our journey, we're going to find that everything that is happening happens between our heart and our head. You want to know how they rob you? They rob you in your mind. So, for the trouble you expect will come. The trouble you expect will come. Let there be among you a person who understands. When the crop ripened, he came quickly carrying a sickle, and he harvested it. Anyone with 2 good ears had better listen to these words. I think it's quite relevant for us to understand that Yeshua spent 15 years on this journey learning the very things that I'm teaching you from the Buddhist monks and the Taoist monks, all the things that Christianity condemn and Christians make fun of. Okay, he left Israel. He left Jews. He left Palestine. Why? Because it was corrupt. And he had to get out of that place to be able to turn around and see what the truth was and then look back. And what did he do? When he looked back, he saw the lie, but he also had a calling. And we are all called to some purpose of exposing the light, whether that be to your children. And then we can ask ourselves, did I really teach my children the truth? I took them to sun worship school every week. But did I teach my children the truth? And it's okay. I don't seek to condemn you, and neither should you condemn yourself. But as for you, then be on guard against the world. Prepare yourselves with great strength, so robbers can't find a way to get to you. For the trouble you expect will come. Let there be amongst you one who understands. When the crop ripened, he quickly carried a sickle and harvested it. Anyone here with 2 good ears had better listen. Isn't it strange that Yeshua came back and he spent 30 years of his life, 15 of those years learning about this hidden truth that doesn't even exist in our belief system. He found that, and very shortly, he's speaking to you about how things go. Very shortly, once he found the truth and began to rip the clothes off and expose the light that he was, what happened? Very quickly, the sickle came. That's what he just said would happen. Yeshua saw some babies nursing, and he said to his disciples, these nursing babies are like those who enter the Father's domain. They said to him, then shall we enter the Father's domain as babies? And Yeshua said to them, this is so crazy, friend. If I hadn't learned what I've learned, I wouldn't understand at all what that verse means. And I suspect probably almost no one of you understands what this verse really means. But you will when this is over with. We are one already. We already are the creative force. We just happen not to know it. And Yeshua said, when you make the two into one, okay, so that's a setup for us. When you make the two into one, what might that mean? What might it mean, Dave, to make two into one? How does that fit? Well, am I supposed to make two of myself? Am I supposed to go find my poltergeist and we link together and then I become one and all of a sudden I'm enlightened? When you make the two into one, and when you make the inner like the outer, and the outer like the inner, that's huge. See, the problem is we're trying to make the inner like the outer, and the outer's not what's important. It's the inner. Because if you make the inner, the outer will change. Any of you who are struggling with change, you're only struggling with change because you haven't changed. Because if you changed, you wouldn't be struggling with it. You would recognize how wonderful and beautiful it is to lay your head down and go into a meditative state before you fall asleep, only to feel like you woke up 15 seconds later and yet you just slept 8 hours in peace. Crazy, crazy. When you make the two into one, and when you make the inner like the outer, and the outer like the inner, and the upper like the lower, and when you make the male and female into a single one. Did you just read over that without ever stopping and thinking what that means? We are both masculine and feminine. All of us. And I think there's a lot of things that are starting to come out that we have not known. Whether you know it or not, friends, that explains a lot of what's going on in our society. I won't preach about that right now, but I will share that in the future when I feel comfortable doing so. But there's a lot more to that than we have a clue of. And so when you make a male and female into a single one, so that the male will not be male, nor the female be female. Well, now remember in the Bible we have that the disciples asked him a question and they said, Master, when we go into the kingdom, which will we be, male or female? And it's almost as if he kind of laughed at them. And he says, don't you know in the kingdom we'll be neither? So what's really trying to be said there? What is he really saying? Friends, if we all took our clothes off, we would look no different. There's not an ounce of difference between you and a female, if you're male. Because we are all energy. We are all light. There is no difference. And when you drop this body off, friends, we're just light. When you make eyes in place of an eye, when you make eyes, multiple, plural, once again the S, when you make eyes in place of an eye, he's drawing on yet again another metaphoric picture. And a hand in place of a hand, a foot in place of a foot, an image in place of an image. So where did we start in this? In context, didn't we start that he told us the two opposing things? Isn't that what this is all about, is exposing that there are two opposing things going on at the same time, which I've already been speaking of. There is a physical body, and then there is the you. And so he's saying when you begin to recognize, he's turning us towards the understanding of the beginning of illumination. That's what this is. So that male will not be male, nor female be female, when you make eyes in place of an eye, a hand in place of a hand, a foot in place of a foot, an image in place of an image, then you will enter the Father's domain. And I tell you right now, if you read that verse and you needed salvation, you wouldn't find it. Because that makes no sense. I haven't met anybody that reads it any differently. It says what it says. We can either choose to recognize that there's a message in there, or we can choose to look at it and go, whoever wrote this crap doesn't know what they're talking about. But there's a huge, beautiful message about who we are inside of that. And we will morph. We will change. And it even brings up some questions that we've been posing about what's happening to our society on a worldwide. Has anybody ever seen a greater change? Male and female was very clear 50 years ago. And it's not so clear anymore. Esau said, I shall choose you, one from 1,000 and two from 10,000, and all of those that I choose will stand as a single one. What is the single one? It's the collective I am. And that's what's going on right now. The collective I am is beginning to wake up, and the ties and the strength, the bondage that Christianity had, and I suspect it's going on in Islam, and I suspect it's going on in Judaism. These truths are ancient. They're infinitely more ancient than our society could ever remotely claim to be. Even if you go back to Esau, they were ancient in his day. We don't need new teachings. We need to reclaim the knowledge and the wisdom that existed 50,000 years ago when people were walking the face of this earth without a Bible. And so he says, I will choose one from 1,000 and two from 10,000, and they will stand as a single one. Well, is that a statement to us that says that there are those? And I'm not talking about it's predetermined to be this way. I'm talking about true foreknowledge understands that there are flaws that humans have. And if you don't know that you're a spirit and you think that you're just a physical human being, then you will most probably do the stereotypical human being thing. When you begin to, until then, you won't really begin to change. Some of you, I believe, have been trying some things and it's not working real well because you're trying to change. You can't make this happen. You have to open yourself up and you have to be willing to accept truths that you've not known. If you choose not to do that, you will stay in the blindness and the ignorance in which you exist now. That's not a harsh thing. It's just a statement of truth. I will tell you, the option for you to begin to change radically your life is available to you. And so his disciples said, show us the place where you are, for we must seek it. And he said to them, anyone here with 2 ears had better listen. Oh, this is so beautiful, friend. I think I'm going to take this and put it on a t-shirt, and I'm going to have 100 of them made, and that's all I'm going to wear. The truth in this is so cool. It's so profound, and yet it's so simplistic. But I hear this all over the place from people. People who are coming awake. Listen. He said, anyone with 2 ears better listen. There is light within a person of light. Where is the light? Is it going to be when we're saved, when we get to go to heaven and we go through judgment and we find out that we were good enough? Are we light then? Is that what he said? Or did he simply tell us that there are light within the people of light? Did he tell us that everyone is people of light? No, he emphatically did not. Don't be surprised when you're beginning to learn and you're walking in the light and you look around and you go, wow, everything's changing, but nothing's changed. Are you hearing me? Because all that means is that you're beginning to ascend and your perspective is beginning to change. There is light within a person, but notice he doesn't say, I was in a conversation recently and somebody made the statement of, I said, well, I believe fundamentally that there is good in all people, but I also fundamentally believe that there is bad in all people. But we're told that we should only see the good in people. And I'm not quite convinced that I believe that anymore. I believe we have to be open and we have to keep our eyes open and protect ourselves and recognize that even Isa tells us that there are people who are darkness, friend. Maybe you've experienced them. Maybe you know one. So he says, anyone that has 2 ears, there is light within a person of light. Ask yourself this question today, and you can, if you have that desire, you can say yes to this first question. Are you a person of light? Because if you are a person of light, my friend, then the light lives inside of you right now. We don't have to wait till we die. We don't have to live lives that have no value. We can begin to learn that we are love and that we are light. The Creator is love, and in Him, what? This is a whole different session. In Him there is no what? There is no darkness at all. So our Father is exactly the same as what He just told us we are. He's light. That's why everybody who has these near-death experiences, what's all the words you hear them constantly? Well, go to the light. Go to the light. Go to the light. And Yeshua says that inside of people that are people of light, there is light. Do you recognize that had those people in many cases that had to go to the light, or who chose not to go to the light in many cases and had to come back to earth, that we're supposed to be the light of the world? You could ask yourself this question. If the world was functioning as was intended, and it's not right now, but we're headed in that direction, if this world was functioning, why would they need to go anywhere when you, as well as their self, are the light? Actually, the answer to all of the questions we have in life are already inside of us if we would just get to know who we are and ask ourselves those questions. That's why very, very, very honorable men like Robert Eisenman, who's one of the most prolific writers on the Dead Sea Scrolls that is, says the bottom line is nothing in life matters except for righteousness. Well, you could ask yourself, if nothing matters, then how do I know what righteousness is? Because all you need to do, my friend, is to look inside of you. You know. Every time, in every situation, every decision, every thought that you've ever had in your life, you know inside of you whether you did wrong or not. I don't care if you tell me that that's not true. It is true. You knew it. You did that because of selfishness. You did that because of greed. You did that because of hate. You did that because of anger. We might have a reason why we did that, but inside of you, you knew that what you were doing was wrong. And so what a joy it would be. It really truly would be like heaven if we all just made the right decision in every situation instead of the wrong one, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be cool if you didn't even have to work to be good anymore? It just like naturally came, brought you great joy when you did right instead of being such a toss. Oh, well, I used to have people give me testimony. Well, Brother Turner, I didn't do all this bad stuff over here. Ain't I good? And it's like, well, I think you might have missed the point. So let's don't miss the point. Let's begin to grow, and let's begin to find out who we are, and why don't we just be what we were created to be? And so he says there is a light within a person of light, and that light shines on the whole world. Collectively, why is the world so dark? Because people are not shining their light. We even get that in the whole Christian thing. This little light of mine. Y'all think I'm silly when I sing that song, but that's one of the most cool songs in the world to me. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Are you really? Or are you just singing some song that you learned when you was in Sunday school and you're not living it? Because I can tell you right now, friends, we can take that one song and throw the rest of the Bible away. If you're not doing that, you're not right. Whatever that means. And so our light will shine on the whole world. If it does not shine, it is dark. And we find that in other places in the scripture. If your light is dark, there is no deeper darkness than a person of light that's walking in darkness. There is no darker than that. Why? Because you are intentionally denying what you are. And so Yeshua said, love your friends like your own soul. I've been teaching on this. This is also cropping up in people that have never been in Christianity. You want to know how you're supposed to love other people? Maybe you've heard me say that we are love and we should be showing love and everything is love and our very essence is love, and I believe all those things are true. As I've grown, I've found that I've been able to let go and recognize that it's okay to love. Of course I'm going to get hurt. When it wasn't okay for me to love, I still got hurt. So what's the big diff, right? I'd rather get hurt and feel wonderful. And so he says you are to love your friends like your own soul and protect them like the pupil of your eye. I did a dissertation recently about ego and how ego causes us all of the horrible things that that our society is, that are totally horrible for us, all are derived from the ego. It's all about me. Some of you know that. You live in a life, everything is about being defensive, everything is about being competitive, everything is about, and those things are all essences of pride, dear friend, and the ego is pride. Certainly directly tied to pride. You want to lose your pride, lose your ego, and when you lose your ego, it's okay what people say. That's a real big message. I won't charge you extra for that one tonight, but I'm just telling you what I just said right there might be a small sentence, but if you find its true essence, I guarantee you will find the truth. What's hindering us? Everything that they have taught us that we needed. You think that it's insignificant when you drive down the road and there's a sticker on the back of a car, and I've done this 1,000 times, so I absolutely know that what I'm saying is true. And you drive down a highway in United States of America, and you're behind a car, and on the back of that car is a bumper sticker, and it says, with a red, white, and blue flag, American Pride. Now, some of you went to church, and you heard the preacher say, pride is bad. But this pride that we have of being America, now that's a good pride. You see the absurdity of it? You want to know why America's in the state it is? Because of ego. Putin wants everybody to see he's stronger and smarter than Donald Trump is. Unfortunately, nobody saw it. All pride. You want to know why Trump behaves like he does? All pride. All ego. We watched for an hour the other night on the television, nothing but an ego battle. Well, of course, it's apparent that Trump has a much greater ego than Biden does, because he obliterated that. But does it really matter if we're functioning in ego and in pride? Does it really matter who has the biggest one? Isn't the concept that we're trying to learn is not to have one at all? How crazy would it be if those two stood up there and spent an hour telling the world how we can finally live like we were created to? Where was that at? Where was it really with all the billions that we spent giving just to Ukraine? What might we have been able to do to totally bless the United States of America? I asked the simple question, why can't we have health care? The government's not paying for it. You understand the government is nothing. If you take the people's money away from the government, they're nothing. And we bow to them like they're our slave drivers because they have taken that authority because we gave it to them. Which would you rather buy? Would you rather buy a child having some amazing surgery that he needs, or would you rather buy another bomb for Russia to shoot, or for Ukraine to shoot at Russia? Ask yourself, what are you interested in paying for? And until we as people, humans on this earth, begin to awaken to what right and wrong is, because I believe the light is the essence of right. I don't care about wrong. If I'm focused on right, wrong is no longer relevant. That's why you keep feeling shame and you keep feeling destruction, because you haven't yet made the conversion to be able to stop. Maybe it's just because you're not there yet. But when you get there, when you begin to do right from your heart, because you love and you know who you are, all of a sudden, guess what happens? It's not so difficult to know what to do anymore. Wow. I went through 39 instances I would have blown my top today, and I didn't blow my top on one of them. Really? Are you seeing what I'm saying? He's trying to tell us, friends. It's going to be all around us. These things are called synchronicities. They're not coincidental. It's not coincidental. All the things that I've shown and shared on YouTube over the last 10 years here, it is not coincidental that we have been through the journey that we've been through. Because if we had not gone through this journey, and those of you that are with me, if you had not been here to partake of that journey where we're headed, you would probably never make it. there. And so we should then be thankful for the hard times that we've had. Thankful for the bad things. What if we turned our heart from being a martyr to being thankful for all the things, including the bad? Do you think that would change your heart? Do you think it would change your life? What if everything wasn't horrible, even if it was bad? What if I really learned something big out of that bad thing I just went through? I think if you'll listen and listen to the Spirit inside of you, the Spirit is speaking, friends. The only thing that hinders people from hearing the Spirit is themselves. And many people don't want to hear because they don't want to change. And so it's just easier to close off and not listen to that intuition that lives in us, that still small voice that tells you, don't go that way, go this way. Don't act like that, act like this. And we totally kill that thing. We turn the volume off on it. And we turn the volume up over here of I want to do what I want to do and I don't care about nothing. Until you begin to turn the volume up, you won't see change in your life. But when you begin to turn the volume up, your life will immediately, you will begin to attract positive things to yourself. You will attract positive people. You will have people that will come to you. You will have people that you will be in conversation that are hurt, and you now get then an opportunity to be light. How do you do that? You shed light by sharing who we are. And so, if that's you, then we may have hard days in front of us, but be courageous. We may have hard days in front of us where the enemy's going to try to come and steal it. Just be prepared. Just recognize that while we are this, they are not. And I don't mean that in a spiritual ego sense either, which is another message that we have to very well be careful as you begin to grow. You'll all of a sudden start looking down on people and going, well, they're not one of the chosen. They're not smart enough. I'm chosen. I'm smart enough. And that leads you right back to spiritual pride. And I can show you some teachings Yeshua did against the Pharisees about that very thing, friend. So, as we continue to follow Isa from Tibet to China and back to Palestine, there's a wealth of wisdom and knowledge that we also can receive. And so I hope you guys have been blessed tonight. I hope you have felt love, because you should have. And I hope more than anything you will choose to learn to love yourself. Until we begin that piece of the journey, we can't really know. What does it mean to love myself? And I'm going to leave that with you. The affirmations I would like to share with you before I go, just a couple of them, if I could. As you're walking through your day, when you begin to question if you are thinking and you're functioning, and this is very important to your mind and your heart, as you're walking through the day, it's very positive if you will begin to affirm your journey. If you get into a situation and you begin to feel weakened, somebody makes fun of you, somebody says something, you have a wrong thought, you should begin to then take some of these simple mantras and put them on yourself. I am. It's been huge for me, man. I go through these things, and every time I meditate and I tell myself, which is what I'm doing, is planting myself with good seed, that I am. Whatever Yeshua I am. I am the light of the world. And so when I begin to recognize in my mind begins to go, we're something special. We're not just a mere human that has no value that people walk on, even if you're living in a body where you have no value and people walk on you. That's not me. One of the verses that we'll probably see next week, he says, until you take off your clothes and put them under you and trample them under your feet. You know what he's saying? Until you get rid of this flesh and you totally abhor it, you'll never know what the truth is. And if you don't do something to do that, you'll never do that. And so one day we will all be light again, and the next phase is going to be pretty crazy, I have a feeling. So shalom to each and every one of you. Not only tell yourself, you must believe it, and we'll pick that up in Saturday on prayer, because we're going to move into a little deeper facets that are a little more esoteric, but really they're the strength of what the concept of prayer even is. And ask yourself this question: who was I praying to? Were you praying to Yahweh? Were you praying to El? Or were you praying to the earlier gods, Enki and Enlil, who are just a metaphoric picture of El and Yahweh? So now what's being put in front of you is the truth of who we are. Pretty wonderful. So take those words, tell yourself until you believe it. If you don't, tell yourself until you believe it. I am here. I am of value. I am amazing. I am strong. Whatever your weakness is, begin to speak authority over it. And when you begin to believe that, then you'll begin to watch those things change. They no longer have the strength they used to. But we are the masters of our own destiny, friend. There is a destiny if you do nothing. I don't want to talk about that. I talked about that for 30 years as a Christian pastor. I don't want to talk about the destiny. I want to talk about the destiny of those that do right. And that's amazing, wonderful, glorious, beautiful, you know. So, you are the light of the world, and it's time we begin to let that shine. Shalom.